I guess it doesn't matter that Donald Trump put her up in a five-star resort because Ghislaine Maxwell is still thwarting every attempt Donald Trump makes to try to prevent us from talking about the Epstein files. Because from within prison, she has still been able to create story after story with leak after leak. And the latest is the most devastating of them all. As Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche continue to push off the Epstein release because it is a secret list, that is finally bringing our attention back to the issue Donald Trump dreads most. And it is happening as Pam Bondi is soft-floating the idea of releasing some more documents because I guess what's happening in Minneapolis is so damaging to Donald Trump that he'd rather us be talking about Epstein. And it all begins with the two players who have covered up these files the most, Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi. The announcements that they're making before we get to what Ghislaine is just now putting out. But like I said, it starts with Todd Blanche.
Will comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Quote, you said next week and the week after. DOJ is now 37 days past the statute's December 19th deadline. Less than 1% of the files have been released. So, Mr. Blanche, when will all of the Epstein files be released?
Look, we've been working literally 7 days a week to go through all the materials, but there is nothing more important than protecting the victims. And that means that every single page that we're going to release, we have to lay eyes on and make sure that we're redacting all appropriate information. We will not rush that process. We will not risk victim information being released. And I would hope that Congress doesn't want us to do that. And I would expect that they expect us to do our jobs. And so we have over 500 Department of Justice lawyers working on it every day. I expect that we will see the release of the materials soon.
So when will it be released? Soon? How soon?
Well, listen, there are millions and millions of pages we're looking at, and I'm not gonna create an artificial deadline that I then miss for our men and women that are working on it. But we're working on it very hard, and when we know a date of release, we'll let the public know and let Congress know. But it is soon. It is very soon. We've been working on it now for over a month, reviewing hundreds of thousands of pages.
Oh, so you have no answer, and we're getting the files. Never. And they're just not gonna come out. What do you mean? You've been working day and night. You have had so many days and nights. It's been a year. What's the explanation? Should you just not be doing your job if you're that bad at it? It's like every time that Donald Trump or Kash Patel or Christine Noel says, well, ICE, that they need the support of local law enforcement and they didn't intervene to help them. Are they that bad at their jobs? Obviously, they don't do jobs. They're murderous thugs. That's it. This is not law enforcement or community safety. But no, everybody at the DOJ is complicit. They're either complicit because they're covering up or complicit because they're so bad at their jobs. It is illegal to be that incompetent. It's literally illegal. But Pam Bondi, noticing that maybe Donald Trump needs the pressure off some other areas, made an announcement about the Epstein files that I think is actually just related to the Ghislaine news. US expects to finish review of Epstein files soon. Bondi says, by law, the government was required to release its files on Jeffrey Epstein in December. Now the Attorney General and they will be out of the room in the near term. The Justice Department now expects to finish its review and public release of the government files related to Jeffrey Epstein in the near term, Attorney General Pam Bondi said in court filings on Tuesday in Manhattan. Ms. Bondi said she was not able to provide a specific date for the completion of the work, which she said involved reviewing and redacting several million pages of materials in the files of the department, the FBI, and the U.S. Attorney's Office. So first of all, that's a straight-up criminal admission from Pam Bondi that there are millions more documents when she said that there weren't, and that they haven't finished completing them when they were supposed to by law back in December. So let's just start there. Pam Bondi isn't just someone who broke the law. This is an ongoing breaking of the law. But we always talk about what Donald Trump is doing to distract from the Epstein files. Now, I'm going to say something that sounds a little crazy, but when we read this Galen news, you'll understand it. Is there any way Donald Trump is using the Epstein files to distract from the Epstein files that he thinks he can release, like some specific parts, to distract from what Ghislaine Maxwell just said? Well, it's possible, considering this news right here. Maxwell lobs grenade, naming 29 protected Epstein friends. Documents revealing secret settlements reached by Epstein associates have still not been released by the DOJ. Maxwell's hammer. It's good. Beatles reference should come down on Epstein co-conspirator cover-up. Ghislaine Maxwell may be locked up in Club Med version of a Texas prison, but she just lobbed a rhetorical grenade straight into the middle of Washington's most awkward silence. Buried in a habeas petition that Maxwell recently filed in court, hoping to avoid her conviction, the convicted associate of Jeffrey Epstein references 4 potential co-conspirators and 25 men who allegedly reached secret settlements connected to Epstein's abuse and were never indicted, which immediately raises the question Pam Bondi and her DOJ desperately want to avoid. Who are these men, and why are they still being protected? Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act to stop this kind of institutional stonewalling, a law that Donald Trump signed and, of course, continues to break. But before anyone pretends Maxwell's petition is all theoretical, we already know what settlement, no indictment looks like in real life. As The Swamp has previously reported, billionaire Leon Black, a Trump ally and former Apollo CEO, paid $62.5 million to the U.S. Virgin Islands to settle claims tied to his financial dealings with Epstein. No criminal charges, just a very large check and a quiet exit. Notably, Black is the same person who, in 2018, as Congress probed for an interference in the 2016 election, gave evidence about being with Trump during a trip to Russia in the naughty 90s. Or they attended a concert, a discotheque, and according to Black Swan testimony, might have been in a strip club. Together, Black paid Epstein roughly $170 million nominally for tax and estate planning. Sure, but denied knowing anything about his industrial-scale sex trafficking. But multiply that settlement by 25. And suddenly Maxwell's filing looks less like noise and more like a roadmap. So naturally, Trump's response has been to deflect. Every time the Epstein story heats up, he magically discovers a new distraction. Venezuela, Greenland, the White House ballroom. If the DOJ had nothing to hide, transparency would be easy. If the files were harmless, they'd already be public. If the names on this list didn't matter, nobody would be working this hard to keep them secret. You talk about a secret list. That's the secret list. More co-conspirators, more secret settlements, more payouts to keep things hush. Hush. That is what we have been looking for. This is a follow the money roadmap. Billionaires paying off Epstein, Maxwell, everyone connected. Why this list is so important? These payouts is because if they look like the range of $62.5 million, and I know that wasn't directly to Epstein, that was to the Virgin Islands. But if they look like that sum, if they look like that amount, or if they look like the $170 million that Black gave Epstein for estate planning, then we are talking about some of the richest and most powerful people in the world who are on that list of secret settlements. And we need to know, because if they had that type of cash to fork over to keep things quiet, they're significant people with significant power. And we need to know if Donald Trump was part of that list. It would be no surprise to me. But this is why we have to follow the money. That is what has been so important as this administration moves to strip us of every single civil liberty we have. And it's not just with the DOJ and the Epstein files. Right now, Jamie Raskin broke down how. That is exactly what is happening with Lawrence O'Donnell when they were talking about the ongoing attack in Minneapolis. Because just because Greg Boyven has been ousted his little ass doesn't mean things are done. And I want to listen to what Raskin had to say, because I think this is all truly connected.
And Renee, good. We are going to nail that down. The Department of Justice was created in the wake of the Civil War to try to enforce civil rights and justice for the freed slave population and to try to create some semblance of equality of rights under the law. Well, this Department of Justice has shown no interest in actually investigating who's responsible for these cold-blooded killings of U.S. citizens in the streets of the heartland of America. And they've moved to cover up the possibility of our finding out what is in the evidence, and they've moved to blockade investigations by real law enforcement officials in Minnesota and in Minneapolis. And I'm glad that Attorney General Keith Ellison in Minnesota and the governor of Minnesota are pushing and demanding in court that the evidence not be destroyed or removed, and that it be turned over to state and local authorities.
We've had the local prosecutor, the county attorney, Mary Moriarty, on this program, and she says she has opened a homicide investigation in both of these cases, and she is going to proceed with whatever evidence she can get. It seems likely that the agents involved in these have left the state of Minnesota. It seems likely that the Trump administration would simply move them out of the jurisdiction by now.
Yeah, well, criminal suspects, of course, can leave the jurisdiction. That doesn't absolve them of the crime. Stephen Miller wants the people operating under his vicious, lawless instructions to believe that they have absolute immunity. They do not. They have qualified immunity, speaking legally, which means they have to be operating within the bounds of law, under the scope of their employment, and they've got to be acting reasonably. And if they step outside of that by acting unreasonably and outside of the law, then they lose that protection. Now, admittedly, the Trump Department of Justice and the Roberts Court have been doing everything in their power to try to undermine that, but it is still the law that they are not covered by absolute immunity. And one of the things that we need to do, again, operating as much as possible in a bipartisan way, is to get all Americans together to say that the rights contained in the Bill of Rights need to be fortified now by legislation. For example, everybody's got the right to be filming law enforcement in public. That's just part of the First Amendment. Everybody has a right before their door is knocked down by a government agent to have a search warrant issued based on probable cause by a neutral, independent magistrate that is in the judicial branch of government, not by the executive branch that is trying to knock your door down. It's not their warrant that's needed. It's a warrant from a neutral, impartial magistrate that can take their petition. These are the basic precepts of the Bill of Rights that are being trampled by the Trump administration on a daily basis. And again, I just want to thank the people of Minnesota, as you've been doing, Lawrence, for standing up every day and showing the rest of America what we need to do. We need to stand up every day against this reign of terror and lawlessness by the Trump administration and fight back at every turn. And we are going to get through it, and we are winning every day, and our forces are growing all over the country.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
They want to strip us of our rights and say that they are not governed by law. That is how Donald Trump, Pam Bondi, and Todd Blanchard want to operate. They want us to believe that we are just their serfs, that they can tell us what to do, that they can gun us down in the street, and that they can pay off whatever billionaire sex criminal. They want to keep their stories quiet, that they want that to be our view. But we cannot allow ourselves to become numb to that. It's why we have to cover this every single day. It's why we gotta keep talking about Epstein. I promise you, I am on this show. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around at the end, drop a blue heart in the comments. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let him silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.